Let's all say hi to Shido.
Hi.
He is the definition of a completely rizzless and utterly pathetic loser who wouldn't be able to clap a girl even if there were two magnets attracting his Excalibur to their peaches. This catastrophe of an anime follows how our idiot has to hopelessly rizz an ancient baddie to stop world destruction. Let's just say this world is cooked. 30 years ago, the Earth was hit with something we call a spacequake. It opened like a wormhole and blew away everything within thousands of miles, just like a queef. Lives were lost. I'm also watching this for the first time, so let's go. A 13-year-old Kotori wakes up her brother by bouncing on the bed. She pounced on him literally, and at this time I would have given her a resounding 3 blocks echoing slap. But he chases her away by saying he's gotta tickle my sister glue, and she disintegrates into thin air within seconds. His name is Shido. Apparently they live alone because I'm not seeing any other person here. He dresses and coax out to the living room. He finds her shivering like she's just seen a ghoul. He pulls up beside her and almost scares her into wetting herself. He tells her that the virus is gone and she's safe. The news reporter says there's a small spacequake somewhere, and now it seems spacequakes are a normal day-to-day life thing. Shido and his sister sit down for breakfast. She surprises him by suggesting they hit up a low-class restaurant after school. They agree to meet there after school, no matter what happens, even if a spacequake occurs, which is now as common as sunrise. As they peacefully discuss their lunch plans, the camera pans out to reveal 3 ugly background characters gawking at them from a distance, just as the ugly NPC girls judge Kotori and Shido's relationship. Tanamachi waltzes in and gives them more things to talk about. They speculate that he claps both genders. In class, a mysterious white-haired girl interrupts by calling out his name. This sudden attention leaves Shido wondering who she is and why she's sitting next to him. Shido asks Tanamachi about her, and he tells him her name is Tobiichi, a literary genius who deserves a Nobel Prize, just like Joe Biden for real. But most importantly, how does this steaming hot lady know this virgin Shido? Throughout the class, Tobiichi keeps staring at Shido like he stole her peach covers last night. Hours later, the bell rings, signaling the end of class. Tanamachi rushes over to Shido, proposing they head home together, but Shido declines, mentioning that he has plans. Tanamachi jumps to the conclusion that Shido is meeting to clap another girl. But when Shido corrects him, saying he's meeting his sister, Tanamachi, the idiot, asks if it is a stepsister type of situation. After all, who's going to go out with this virgin? Alarm blares across the city, signaling an impending spacequake. Everyone scrambles for shelter as the city's high-tech evacuation system kicks in. Shido, on the other hand, is more concerned about Kotori, fearing she might be stubborn enough to wait for him at the restaurant despite the life-threatening danger. He tries to call her, but his efforts are in vain. When he checks the GPS, his fears are confirmed. She's still at the restaurant. On his way, the spacequake erupts with the force of 1,000 Dragon Ball Z battles, sending Shido flying. When he recovers, he spots a girl in an outfit from a War Maiden anime standing in the middle of the destruction. The girl suddenly picks her sword and sends a slice beam like Zoro from One Piece, but misses Shido with only centimeters. She points her weapon at him and hold up, wait a minute. She looks like she can decapitate me, but I would prefer she suffocate me in her melons. She's accusing him of trying to kill her. Shido protests, but before he can make sense of the situation, a group of girl fighters arrives, launching missiles at the mysterious girl. She blocks the attacks with a force barrier like they just blew air her way. As the battle rages on, Shido realizes that one of the female fighters is Tobiichi, but just peep those juicy-looking buns. The clash between the two girls escalates like a fight between Sanji and Zoro. Their weapons collide, unleashing an energy blast that could rival a Kamehameha wave. The shock wave knocks Shido out cold. When Shido wakes up, he's met with an even insane reality. The anti-spirit team, which came around to fight the otherworldly Melanie girl, their leader is his tiny little sister. She explains to him and sasses him about calling him dumb. She explains that the girl he saw there are spirits from another world, and upon entering Earth they cause those massive explosions. And now he has to worry about training. Next day at school, a new teacher is introduced, Ryan from the anti-spirit team, AST. Shido's training is a PlayStation game, but it's 18 plus rated, and his job is to learn how to make the spirits want to clap. What are the odds of that? Shido sits through the gruesome scene of the game where his sister's character asked him to stop seeing her as his sister, but as a woman. Tobiichi wakes up from a nightmare of the time her parents were killed by a descending spirit. is drenched in a pool of her own sweat. Next, we see Rein holding Shido's face like she wants to give him a lip-to-lip. She pulls away though. This desperately wanting to be clapped boy points out his lips for a kiss. She was just putting on a talkback. His sister arrives and she wastes no time in sending the virgin out for practice. He uses his teacher for practice, and for the first few things he managed to slip out of his mouth were all utterly nonsense. Before he could say another word, Reina came to the rescue and gave him some sweet lines that would sweep any lonely 29-year-old off her. Wait, this pretty angel is 29? God damn. The teacher falls for it and begins planning their wedding right there. Kotori calls this a win and tells him to abscond before the teacher claps him. He runs away but bumps into Tobiichi. He raised his head and his first line of eyesight was straight at her peach covers. Kotori uses this as a wonderful opportunity to get him rolling with Tobiichi since she's his age and not a desperate 29-year-old lonely teacher. His first bars at her were as strong as paper, utterly useless. Rein helps again. He goes with the flow of Rein's words like a certified clapper. She seconds everything he said like it was fate that sent him her way. He asked her out, and without breaking a thought, she agreed. The relationship kick started already, and she gave him a picture of her in uniform since he loved it so much. Just as Shido tries to explain that it was all a misunderstanding, the spacequake alarm goes off again. Tobiichi, now in her AST uniform, rushes off to confront the spirit from the previous day, who has reappeared and is holed up in a classroom. The AST can't attack without risking civilian casualties, so Kotori orders Shido to step in and handle the situation. Shido enters the classroom heart-pounding. The spirit, whom he now recognizes as the girl from before, greets him with a laser attack that narrowly misses him. He's desperately trying to stay calm. He assures her that he's not here to fight, just to talk. The spirit, surprised by his sincerity, lowers her weapon. She admits that he's the first human who hasn't immediately tried to kill her, which is probably the closest thing to a compliment she's ever given. When Shido asks for her name, she reveals that she doesn't have one, so he names her Toka after the date they first met. She's oddly pleased by this. The AST, growing impatient, starts firing at Toka, but she raises a barrier to protect herself and Shido. Kotori, watching from the command center, urges Shido to make his move. Shido, who just mouthed some words to save his life and promised the spirit that he'll always be with her, and now he asked her out. Bro already got 2 waifus in episode 2. Tobiichi sees that he's in the barrier with Toka and rushed in out of command, and she gets her ass whooped trying to save her man. The next day, Shawty returns to the scene and reassures himself that it was not a dream. Toka appeared and demanded the date he promised her. He tells her she can't move around in that armor and tells her to change to a school uniform. Toka transforms her suit into the perfect school uniform. As they stroll through the city, Toka goes full Goku and devours anything edible in sight. She's busy eating hot dogs when she can eat his meat instead. She spots some mysterious white cream, and with the innocence of a One Punch Man character discovering a new hobby, gets all excited and demands to try it too. Meanwhile, lurking in the shadows like a low-budget Kakashi, Tobiichi is spying on them and wondering why Toka's arrival didn't trigger the usual spacequake. Shido asks Toka where she disappears to when she vanishes like a ghost in Bleach. She reveals she's been chilling in some dark alternate world. Shido starts connecting the dots and realizes that spacequakes might just be a side effect and not something the spirits do on purpose. However, when he asks why there was no quake today, Toka sidesteps the question like a ninja from Naruto and instead requests more meat for her insatiable appetite. The virgin should give her the meat of justice, rightly splitting her chopsticks and milking her all the way. But no, the dumb virgin's wallet is already as empty as Yusuke's from Yu Yu Hakusho after a bad day at the arcade. They soon stumble upon a restaurant, and despite Shido's protests, Toka insists on checking out the menu. Tanamachi, the real MVP, swoops in with cash, saving Shido's broke and ugly behind. As they enter, Shido is shocked to see Reina. Meanwhile, Toka is busy browsing the menu and surprise, Kotori pops in too, like she's got a teleportation jutsu. She cheekily suggests Toka order a special overkill course. Toka goes into full-on gluttony mode from 7 deadly sins, devouring the food like she's preparing for the next big anime battle. When Shido asks Kotori what's going on, she explains that she's just trying to get Toka to fall in love with him. As Kotori leaves, she drops a hint for Shido to head south of the station, and following her advice, Shido and Toka find themselves in a park that magically replaces the residential area. Tobiichi, still creeping like a Tokyo ghoul, gears up for an attack. Later that evening, Toka is positively glowing with excitement, realizing that not all humans are out to kill her like she once thought. However, she also admits she now understands why the AST is after her. She's like a walking disaster, destroying everything beautiful whenever she enters this world. Shido reassures her that since there was no spacequake this time, maybe things can change. But Toka says it was just a fluke, and who knows what might happen next time. Shido tells her to stay and promises to teach her everything she needs to know about the human world. Toka doubts the AST will ever accept someone as dangerous as her, but Shido, like a knight in shining berserk armor, TMI! TMI! Tobiichi shot at Toka but missed, and it hit Shido. Toka, in one breath, summons her astral suit. The spacequake alarm blares, and the AST worries about Tobiichi. But Kotori, like a cold-hearted Code Geass strategist, is more concerned about Toka. When asked about Shido, she brushes it off, knowing that Shido will magically wake up, which he did. Toka pulls out the biggest sword of all anime history and goes full-on berserk on Tobiichi, just as she was about to end the dumb virgin's human girlfriend who thinks she just killed the love of her life. Shido came down from the sky and Toka caught him. His sword is about to go boom in the sky, so he claps her lips, and this ultimately calms her down. They landed and she was full out without clothes, and the dumb virgin was enjoying what he saw and her melons all over him. He promised her that they'll go on another date. A few days later, Shido returns from school trying to dodge the rain, wondering why the weather forecast has been about as accurate as an Akira prediction. He spots a young girl named Yoshino who, like a Pokemon caught in the wild, falls while playing in the rain. Shido tries to help, but Yoshino freaks out, maintaining social distance like she's got a COVID-19 backstory. The next day, despite the forecast, it rains again. Shido, curious about Yoshino, passes by the spot where he met her, but after a brief moment of pondering, he heads home. Once there, he heads straight to the bathroom, only to find Toka in the shower. Shock! Completely clothless. Shido is kicked out like a germ and has no time to ogle at her melons. He runs to Kotori to demand an explanation. Kotori nonchalantly explains that after their kiss, Shido sealed Toka's spirit powers, creating an invisible link between them. Reina is also here too. Everyone says hi. Shido, baffled, asks why he has this ability, but Kotori shrugs, saying they only discovered it through some Ratatouille-style analysis. Rain then adds that Toka's powers might return if her mental state becomes unstable, so it's best she stays close to Shido until a proper home for spirits is built. Kotori sees this as an opportunity for Shido to hone his skills at clapping more spirits. She explains that there are more spirits out there that need charms and maybe his Excalibur. Following this, Kotori sets up several traps to get Shido to be naughty with Toka, calling it training, but Toka, flustered each time, just smacks him like a tsundere in denial. The next day, the usual chaos ensues as Tobiichi and Toka fight over Shido. They both make cookies for him, and he does all he can to broker peace. A spacequake alarm suddenly goes off and everyone evacuates. Tobiichi, ready for battle, gears up, while Reina tells Shido to leave Toka behind since she's now powerless and shouldn't be exposed to the danger of battling other spirits. Shido reluctantly hands Toka over to the homeroom teacher and heads to the ship to assess the situation. He soon realizes the spirit being attacked is none other than Yoshino, the girl he saw a few days ago. Determined to save her, Shido gets ready for his next mission. Upon entering the building where Yoshino is hiding, she reveals herself, but instead of talking, her little puppet does all the speaking. They get so cozy quickly, and one thing leads to another, and they incidentally clap lips. Guess what? Toka saw. She goes on a rage but speaks to the doll and eventually grabs it from Yoshino, who spikes and summons a freeze shark and goes on a rampage. After witnessing with her own eyes her man's lips on another woman's lips, she finds it unbearable, like watching a filler episode that drags on for no reason, and decides to give him the silent treatment. She goes out for lunch with Reina in search of advice on how to quench this ugly feeling in her chest. She opens up saying that what she saw not only stuck a knife in her heart, but also left her feeling more confused than an isekai protagonist trying to navigate their new world. Meanwhile, the disgusting and certified spirit clapper comes across Yoshino, who's seriously trying to find her doll. He approaches her, and one look at his ugly face makes her want to run away like she's just seen a Titan from Attack on Titan, but he stops her, saying he wouldn't hurt her. They go to the site of the last encounter to search for her doll. After searching for a while, he notices, nah, he doesn't. Her tummy growls like a starved lion. He takes her home to make her a meal since it's raining, and the place is in rubble due to the last event, which was a classic anime fight scene that leaves everything in ruins. We find out that the doll is actually Yoshino, and her name is Yoshina. She wants to be like her doll, Strong, brave, and cool-headed in every situation, kind of like Mikasa from Attack on Titan, Yoshino. Her doll, who tells her to calm her peach whenever something happens. Shido compliments her, saying he likes her just the way she is right now. Lies, he just wants to clap her cheeks. This opportunist clapper takes advantage of her vulnerability and uses it against her. He says he'll be her hero, just like All Might from My Hero Academia, and asks if she knows what a kiss is. He attempts to show her, and boom! Toka, who just underwent therapy and is now ready to apologize to him, bursts in like a tsundere, catching the protagonist in an awkward situation. She sees them about to start clapping themselves. Yoshina disappears and Toka storms out, channeling her inner Asuka from Neon Genesis Evangelion. He's got the location of Yoshina's doll and moves to go get it. It's at Tobiichi's place. When he gets there, Tobiichi doesn't miss the opportunity to solidify their relationship. She wanted to be clapped in that towel she came out of the shower with, but the half-wit of a human is more attracted to spirits than humans now, like a main character who only has eyes for the mysterious, otherworldly girl in the anime. He grabs the doll and leaves as she also runs to answer the emergency call. The AST assembled to fight Yoshina, who's on a minor rampage, but this rampage escalates as she calls the spirit of her freeze shark or freeze bunny. I can't really tell. It's like when a Pokemon battle goes way out of hand. She freezes a few AST members and the rest fire down at her. Shido enlists Toka's help after convincing her that Yoshina is just like her, much like how Luffy convinces his crew to help a new friend. Toka distracts the rest while he marches into the Cyclone of Ice, where he hands Yoshina her doll, and she cries a little, like a touching moment in a shoujo anime. He reminds her that he's her hero and brings up the lip-to-lip talk. And as he's yapping dust, she goes in and gives him a lip-to-lip just as she's asking if she did it well. Her powers fade away. Guys, we've hit a filler episode. If it wasn't necessary, scrap the thing. Men, is that so much to ask? I remember when Naruto used over 20 episodes for a filler just to convey one message. I died. One morning, Toka and Yoshino see a TV ad about a hot spring and immediately want to visit. They ask Shido to take them, and after some persuasion that feels more like a hostage situation, Kotori grants their wish, not wanting to risk the spirits going berserk again. Meanwhile, at the AST base, the captain of the Mecha team and her subordinates, in desperate need of some R&R, decide to visit the same hot spring. But Tobiichi objects, saying they should be training instead of relaxing. However, she gets a call from Shido, who asks if he can hold on to the book she gave him for 2 more days because he has something important to attend to. Hearing Toka's voice in the background, Tobiichi becomes furious, crushing an innocent little drink in her hand, clearly upset that Shido is spending time with another spirit. As Shido and his group of spirited girls head to the hot spring on foot because Toka, in a fit of jealousy, destroyed their car, the AST team, now disguised as civilians, are also on their way, determined to get some same-gender bonding time. But their train breaks down and they have to continue their journey on foot. Meanwhile, Shido, trying to act cool and not let the group down, reassures Toka that he's not mad at her for destroying the car. The group of idiots at HQ, seeing the AST approaching, mistakenly thinks they're about to start a war, so they create several barricades to slow them down. The AST team, realizing they're being attacked, begins to counterattack, causing a massive wreckage in the surrounding area. Shido continues his journey with Toka and Yoshino, hoping that their trip to the hot spring won't turn into another battle royale scenario. A bomb suddenly detonates right above their heads, causing them to hug the ground faster than you can say. Naruto's ramen is getting cold. Yoshino loses her puppet in the chaos and starts crying like a baby who just dropped their ice cream. And what happens when Yoshino cries? Yep, the whole place starts freezing over, like Elsa's been practicing her ice powers on overdrive. Shido pets her and promises to retrieve her puppet ASAP. Amazingly, the rain stops, as if the weather itself was just waiting for Shido to say something cliché. He heads out on his ultimate search, dodging explosions and chaos like he's in some twisted game of Minesweeper. Meanwhile, the HQ and AST crews are still beefing it out, as if their rivalry wasn't already as intense as the Z Fighters versus the Saiyans. After running through enough explosions to make even Bakugu jealous, Shido finally spots the puppet. But just as he's about to dust off the dirt, a terrible explosion comes hurtling toward him from above. Just before it makes him go bye-bye, Toka swoops in with a barrier like a true OP protagonist, shielding them both. Seeing Tobiichi in her astral dress, the AST team immediately considers attacking. But before Tobiichi can go full power-up mode, she and Shido disappear faster than Team Rocket, blasting off again, leaving the AST crew looking more confused than ever. Afterward, Kotori drags Shido and the girls to a low-budget hot spring her stupid assistant managed to discover while serving a punishment. The AST team, who apparently has nothing better to do, also heads to the hot spring. Meanwhile, Tobiichi starts looking for Shido since she basically tagged along just for him, but she doesn't find him anywhere and her frustration levels are starting to rival Vegeta's on a bad day. The AST team is introduced to Takamiya, the girl who once erased a spirit from existence. The team reacts as if someone just told them that Goku could actually lose a fight. Takamiya takes a seat beside Tobiichi and the captain shows footage of their previous battle with Yoshino. Tobiichi questions Takamiya about the spirit she sent back to the afterlife. Takamiya, in her usual cool demeanor, explains that this spirit was different from the others they've encountered, which is why she was transferred to this unit. Meanwhile, back at school, a new student named Kurumi transfers in, and plot twist, she's a spirit. She introduces herself nonchalantly, like she's the main villain, revealing herself halfway through the series. She asks if someone can show her around after school. A student volunteers, but she dismisses him and heads straight for Shido's seat, declaring that she wants him to be her guide. After school, Shido and Kurumi meet as planned, while Tobiichi and Toka spy on them from a distance, fueled by jealousy. Shido, following the somewhat questionable advice from the geniuses at Rain, accidentally asks Kurumi about the color of her peach covers. Instead of getting angry, Kurumi teases him and attempts to open her peach covers for him to see right there. Shido, panicking as if he's been caught watching something he shouldn't, quickly changes the subject, asking what she meant when she called herself a spirit. Kurumi tells him not to play dumb. He asks her how she knows about him, but she refuses to give any details. Instead, she tells him she's had feelings for him ever since she learned about him. She then grabs his hand and Shido's danger sense starts blaring. Before things get too intense, the two spies, Tobiichi and Toka, fall out of their hiding spot, exposing themselves like clumsy ninjas in training. As they part ways, Kurumi whispers in Shido's ear that she would have preferred for them to be alone and maybe clap? On her way home, Kurumi encounters some bullies who clearly don't know who they're messing with. She lures them to a secluded corner where she literally devours them like a ghoul in a matter of seconds. Takamiya arrives just in time to witness Kurumi's little snack session and prepares to fight her, but before things can escalate, the scene cuts to Shido as he heads home with Tobiichi and Toka following closely behind. Takamiya suddenly appears, hugs him excitedly, and calls him brother, leaving Shido utterly confused. Thrilled that her brother is alive, Takamiya follows him home like a lost puppy, only to be met with Kotori's jealousy. Kotori starts a fight with Takamiya over who's the real sister and who's the fake. During class, Shido receives a message from Kotori asking him to meet in the physics lab during lunch. When he meets Kotori and Rain, they show him footage of Kurumi getting brutally sliced back into the afterlife by Takamiya and the AST the previous day. Yet here she is, alive and well, leaving everyone puzzled about what she really is, like nothing ever happened. She even made it dramatic by coming late to school. Meanwhile, Tobiichi corners Kurumi, demanding to know why she's still alive after getting eliminated. Kurumi restrains Tobiichi with eerie hands that sprout from the floor like Robin from One Piece, and she then tells Tobiichi that all their efforts are in vain, prompting Tobiichi to ask what her endgame is. Kurumi reveals that she enrolled in the school because she wants Shido and all his powers, making Tobiichi realize just how dangerous this girl really is. After school, Shido, following Reina's instructions, asks Kurumi out on a date to gather more intel on her. Kurumi, delighted, agrees, but as she leaves, Tobiichi appears, suspiciously asking what he was discussing with the devil. Shido dodges the question and leaves, but Tobiichi can't help but worry about him. Upon returning home, Toka loosens her buttons as per, "You remember the 3 ugly, gawking girls? They've been around all along, I just don't have enough plot armor for them, but they're all the ones that advise Toka to seduce Shido around Shido until he notices the ticket she's holding between melons. It turns out she's arranged a date with him for the next day. As Shido is processing this, Tobiichi also calls him, asking to meet the next day too, leaving him completely shocked and trapped in a date with 3. The next day, Shido tries to juggle 3 dates without any of the girls finding out about each other. Reina's crew, determined to assist him, promises to make sure he meets the demands of all 3 girls without fail. He starts off with Tobiichi, spending some quality time at the aquarium. When he needs to bail, he fakes a stomach upset and runs off to meet Kurumi Kurumi at a lingerie shop, and we should not lie, though she's a spirit, she's steaming hot. Take a lot at that twist and curves and those lovely juicy melons hanging along. But when some of his classmates spot him, he quickly pulls the stomach-upset excuse again and dashes off to meet Tobiichi at a different location. At the restaurant, Tobiichi, with surprising sincerity, tells Shido that she doesn't want him to be alone and invites him to come clap her at her place after the date. He absconds again. Now he's with Kurumi, and boy, was she in full-blown villain mode. She was brutally shooting a man, flashing that wicked smile of hers, all while sporting a Hublot watch implanted in her left eye. You know, as one does. Realizing things were about to get as messy as a Titan attack in Attack on Titan, Shido tried to make a quick escape, but it was too late. Kurumi's horrifying hands reached out, grabbing him. She licked her lips, clearly planning to have him as a mid-afternoon snack. Boy, oh boy! Is he gonna be clapped midday in the woods? Just as Shido was about to become lunch, a burst of energy exploded in front of him. Takamiya appeared, making a Goku-like entrance to save the day at the nick of time yet again. With a series of rapid strikes from her special weapon, she unleashed a beatdown on Kurumi, leaving her too battered to even consider a comeback, but you've never met a plot armor so thick. Shido, still reeling from shock, stuttered. How can you be so calm after just obliterating someone? Takamiya shrugged. She's a spirit, and taking them out is just another Tuesday for me. She went on to explain that Kurumi was a special kind of spirit, the won't-stay-down type, like that one zombie from Resident Evil that just keeps getting up. Naturally, Takamiya had to keep hammering her because Kurumi had a nasty habit of sending people straight to the afterlife. Even after witnessing all this, Shido tried to defend Kurumi, but Takamiya wasn't having any of it. She shut Shido out with a barrier and marched toward Kurumi, intent on finishing the job. As Shido retreated, he came across his two other dates who should have by now realized his moves and in the spirit of today's business. He absconded to his sister. He felt terrible realizing that not all spirits were the friendly, misunderstood types he was busy clapping. His rosy view of them had been shattered by Kurumi's actions. Confessing his doubts to Kotori, he admitted he wanted to quit, but Kotori wasn't about to let him off easy. In true Naruto fashion, she slapped some sense into him, reminding him that there was no room for quitting in their world. After school, Toka met up with Shido, dragging him off for some much-needed relaxation. But it wasn't long before Shido spilled his guts, admitting that he needed to stop Kurumi from causing more chaos. He was at a loss as to how, given that she was as different from the others as Sasuke was from Naruto. Toka pointed out that Kurumi was still a spirit like the rest of them. The only difference was that no one had cared enough to reach out to her. This gave Shido the push he needed, and the next day, he set out to confront Kurumi, determined to save her. You'd think Kurumi might be swayed by his resolve, but nothing for him. She went full yandere, heading to the rooftop to cause more chaos, just to test whether he really meant what he said. Things escalated quickly when she covered the school with her power, causing the school building to tremble as students dropped like flies. Meanwhile, Takia confronted Kotori, accusing her of putting Shido in danger by sending him to confront spirits unarmed. She even declared that she'd take care of him from now on, but Kotori just chuckled. She wasn't about to hand Shido over to some shady company. Takamiya, stunned, wondered how Kotori knew about the company, only for Kotori to drop another bombshell. They'd analyzed Takamiya's saliva and discovered the company had pumped her full of so much magic that her lifespan was now severely shortened. Just then, an emergency call came in about the situation at school, and they rushed out to handle it. Meanwhile, Shido found Toka writhing in pain, puzzled as to why he wasn't affected. Reina explained that Toka and Yoshino's powers were sealed within him. Kurumi, now perched on the rooftop, called out to Shido, daring him to come up if he had any balls to face her. And without hesitation, Shido made his way to the rooftop to show her the balls in between his legs. But Tobiichi wasn't far behind, activating her mech suit and going to the roof. As Shido confronted Kurumi, demanding to know what she was up to, she casually explained that her time-consuming castle was a barrier that sucked the time out of anyone who crossed her shadow. Shido was stunned. But before Kurumi could redo any harm to Shido, Takamiya arrived at the nick of time and the other females. Another figure appeared, stepping into the chaos, a character no one would believe was a spirit. The air grew thick with suspense as everyone froze, eyes locked on the new arrival. Kurumi restrained them all and triggered another spacequake, but Kotori suddenly appeared, canceling it with an equally powerful force, stunning everyone with her appearance in an astral dress. The battle that followed was nothing short of epic. After trading blows, Kurumi stopped time and summoned her clones, unleashing a barrage of attacks on Kotori. Just as she was about to put a bullet in Kotori's skull, Kurumi believed she had won. But Kotori's wounds healed instantly and she stood back up, leaving Kurumi in shock. Kurumi summoned more clones, but Kotori obliterated them effortlessly, watching as Kurumi shot herself to unleash more power. Weakened, Kotori prepared for another assault, but Kurumi, mocking her, aimed to deliver the final blow. However, Kotori summoned a powerful weapon, blasting Kurumi's clones to pieces and shattering her clock. Exhausted, Kurumi fell to her knees, but Kotori wasn't finished. Seeing this, Shido feared for Kurumi's life and tried to stop Kotori, but she didn't listen. In a desperate move, Shido threw himself in front of Kotori's blast. She realized too late that Shido was in the way. The next thing Shido knew, he woke up in a hospital bed, dazed and confused. He recalled a dream of chaos with Kotori at the center of it all. When he saw Rain, he bombarded her with questions, worried about everyone. Rain reassured him, softly placing his head on her pillows, telling him everyone was fine, though Kurumi had managed to escape. Rain took him to see Kotori, and Shido, still reeling from everything, asked if she was a spirit. Kotori replied that she was human, though the data suggested otherwise. She explained that she was born human, but had become a spirit, or rather a human with a spirit's power, years ago. Shido recalled his dream and realized it might not have been just a dream, shocking Kotori with how accurate his memory was. Shido asked how she became a spirit, but she just shrugged, saying she could barely remember. Shido wondered how they could forget something that important. She floated the idea that someone might have pulled a Men in Black memory wipe on them. Shido then inquired about how she managed to keep her powers under wraps all this time, and her response floored him. She told him that he was the one who sealed them. Cue Shido's surprised Pikachu face. She added that for some inexplicable reason he had this bizarre ability to seal spirits' powers, which was why Reina chose him to make first contact with the spirits. Still trying to wrap his head around the situation, Shido asked why he had healing powers, and she casually revealed they were hers all along. She then called him forward and punched him. She told him he would have died if she hadn't come to her senses in time, as every time she regained her powers, she lost control and felt an overwhelming urge to go on a Godzilla-level rampage. Shido, trying to piece together the puzzle, asked if her powers would return to him. She said no, but dropped the bombshell that if he wanted to reseal them, he'd have to go on a date with her and make her fall in love. Nani? Suddenly, Kotori collapsed like a knocked-out JoJo character, and Reina rushed in to tend to her. Later, Rein dropped the bad news that Kotori could only hold on to her spiritual energy for 2 more days before she would completely lose herself, transforming from the Kotori he knew into something not far from Muzan on a rampage. So, of course, Shido had to take her on a date and seal her powers before time ran out. The next day, Shido visited Takamiya in the hospital but wasn't allowed. Instead, he met up with Takamiya. As he was about to leave, she asked about the mysterious spirit of flames that appeared during their battle with Kurumi. Shido, playing it cool like a side character in My Hero Academia, lied and said he was knocked out cold and didn't see anything, and this was after she played too weak to move, so Shido would carry her. Then she made him peel apples for her and feed her. Then she sat his laps and opened up her melons for him go check her temperature. We were shown what happened next, so it's safe to say they clapped like crazy. It was after that they started discussing the fight, and Takamiya, still sharp as ever, pressed on, revealing that the spirit of flames was the same one that burned her parents before her eyes 10 years ago. Since then, she had been on a revenge mission, joining the AST to hunt spirits like she was on some kind of Naruto-style ninja quest, and she's not backing down until she ends that spirit. Shido, meanwhile, prepped for his date with Kotori by hanging out with all the other girls, because clearly that's the only way to be a successful harem protagonist. He has to pick a swimsuit for his date, but the cow went out with Toka and Yoshino to pick the swimsuits. Tobiichi showed up too, and it turned to an all-out Melanie swimsuit testing content. I must say that the winner of this contest should be Toka, because that white swimsuit is killer. Later that evening, he met with the vice commander of the anti-spirit team, who showed him footage from the Great Fire Day 10 years ago, hoping it might help Shido figure out how he sealed Kotori's powers back then. As Shido reviewed the footage, he saw a shadowy figure standing beside him and Kotori that day, and he realized it might have had something to do with her powers. Trying to recall what happened, his brain short-circuited like a Windows PC from 2001, and he passed out. The next day, which was also the big date day, he met up with Kotori, armed with all the dating tips the internet could offer. But, to his dismay, none of the top-tier advice worked, and he started to panic like a novice player in Dark Souls. At one point, Kotori excused herself, and Shido, thinking this was the perfect chance to get some backup advice, sneaked off to consult HQ. But on his way, he stumbled upon Rain tending to Kotori, who was in serious pain. Eavesdropping, Shido learned that Kotori had been secretly using drugs to stabilize herself since she regained her powers, but she didn't want him to know because she didn't want him to date her out of pity. With this new info, Shido returned to the beachside where they were supposed to meet. When Kotori came back, Shido threw away the hidden comm device he was using to talk with HQ dating Sim, calling them a bunch of idiots, and decided it was time to unleash his inner certified clapper and suggested they head to the amusement park instead. Meanwhile, Tobiichi met with her superior, who showed off the new equipment they had just acquired. Tobiichi asked if it could defeat Ifrit, the spirit of flames, making her superior wonder if Ifrit was the same spirit from 10 years ago. Tobiichi, now fully suspicious, asked to see the footage, only to discover that the spirit she had been hunting all this time was Kotori. Back at the amusement park, Shido and Kotori enjoyed some time together before sitting down for a serious conversation. Kotori, sensing the gravity of the moment, seemed to expect something more. But before Shido could respond, a report came in that Tobiichi had stolen new technology and ammunition. Gathering his courage, Shido attempted to ask Kotori about the incident from 10 years ago. But before he could get an answer, someone attacked Kotori, leaving him terrified. When he turned to see who it was, he found Tobiichi, her expression deadly serious. Shido asked her what she was doing, and she responded that she was there to kill Kotori. However, Kotori reappeared unharmed, calling Tobiichi foolish for thinking she could be taken down so easily. The battle began with Tobiichi unleashing everything she had on Kotori, who quickly transformed into her astral dress, summoning her weapon to fight back. The clash between them was intense, each attack more powerful than the last. Meanwhile, Tobiichi and Yoshino, who were elsewhere in the amusement park, noticed the chaos and quickly realized that Shido and Kotori must be facing a formidable enemy. Tobiichi, determined to help, transformed into her astral suit despite her sealed spiritual powers and rushed to the scene, with Yoshino following closely behind. As the fight continued, Kotori began to weaken, having used too much power. Tobiichi seized the opportunity, binding Kotori with glowing ropes and launching another attack, but Kotori managed to defend herself. She then charged at Tobiichi, destroying her equipment until it deactivated. By this point, Kotori had entered a berserk state, intent on eliminating Tobiichi despite Shido's pleas for her to stop. As she prepared to deliver the final blow, Tobiichi revealed that this was how she lost her parents 10 years ago. This revelation shocked Kotori, causing her to hesitate and fall to the ground. Tobiichi, not wasting any time, prepared another blast, but Kotori blocked it with a barrier. Shido, desperate to protect both of them, intervened, begging Tobiichi to stop. She refused, explaining that she had been living for this moment for the past 10 years. In a final effort, Shido suggested that she was after the Spirit of Flames, not Kotori, but Tobiichi, now confused, insisted that Kotori was the Spirit of Flames. She prepared to fire again, but Tobiichi and Yoshino arrived, distracting her long enough for Shido to whisk Kotori away. In the aftermath, Shido confessed his feelings to Kotori, who blushed before admitting the same. They sealed the moment with a lip-to-lip and possibly clapped themselves out, which also sealed Kotori's powers and healed Shido's wounds. Shido then turned to Tobiichi, telling her that the Spirit of Flames was now inside him, not Kotori. He explained that it wasn't Kotori who killed her parents, but the spirit. Tobiichi, exhausted and at her limit, tried to fire once more, but her weapon was out of energy and she collapsed. Meanwhile, Kurumi briefly appeared on the other side of town. Back at HQ, Reina informed Shido that his date with Kotori hadn't raised her emotional levels as expected. She revealed that Kotori's levels were always high around him because she already had feelings for him. But Kotori wasn't having any of it, so she came out and bunked the idea of loving him.